Things just keep getting crazier for the Edmonton Oilers following last night's game against the Seattle Kraken, in which one I don't think I ever want to see again. That's just the way it went, folks. All that more today on Oilers Digest as we unfortunately recap that contest and look forward to what the Oilers are setting themselves up for towards the end of the regular season as they have 10 games remaining. But if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, make sure you do so. If you're part of the 76% that haven't subscribed to the channel, folks, what are you waiting for? For any and all Oiler content, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below as we get set for the Stanley Cup playoffs. But without further ado, yikes is the only word I would use to describe last night's contest as the Oilers faced off against the Seattle Kraken in the second half of a back-to-back with travels. They played Dallas at home at Rogers Place. Then they traveled to Washington State to take on the Seattle Kraken. And before the game, things got crazy. Of course, you can see there, no, your eyes are not deceiving you. Troy Stecher listed as the fourth line right wing as the Oilers went 11-6 with a little bit of a lineup strategizing, I should say, with no Derek Ryan, as with the Stuart Skinner injury, things got very tricky for Stan Bowman to sort of figure out what exactly to do with this line, with Calvin Pickard getting the start in net with Olivier Rodrigue as his backup there, and unfortunately 6-1 Seattle. It was just one of those games where nothing really went right for the Edmonton Oilers, not just offensively, but defensively as well, in between the pipes there, especially with Pickard in the first two periods. Of course, it wasn't all completely his fault, but you know what? It was just a trilogy of errors on all facets there. In the first period, there was no scoring. Well, technically, there was a goal, but it was disallowed as Jeff Skinner scored. But it was determined that Connor Brown hit it with a high stick, and therefore, we went back to 0-0. But in the second period, folks, this is what led to the demise for the Edmonton Oilers, as the Seattle Kraken scored 5 unanswered there in a span of 12 minutes from Jaden Schwartz, Yanni Nyman, Matty Beniers, and Andre Burakovsky, before Zach Hyman broke the shutout bid of Joey Decord, making it 5-1, but Jared McCann, all but put it to rest last night. And again, not a whole lot I can say about this one. Lack of defense, lack of offense for the most part, and just they're saying it's a scheduled loss, but I mean, 82 games, not all of them are going to be perfect there. But Kris Knoblauch, he did like the way that they did play, especially with no, Draisaitl, McDavid, or Matthias Ekholm, as he took the night off last night for maintenance. You're never going to replace the players that we lost last night, but I think tonight wasn't a very good effort from us, but hopefully it's just a one-off. I liked how we played with the lineup we had. The effort's been good, but tonight, playing a back-to-back against a team that was much fresher and had a lot more speed, they controlled most of the play, of course, not to mention Seattle breaking the 9-game win streak that the Oilers did have against the Kraken heading into, last one's game. So that just goes to show nobody beats the Seattle Kraken 10 times in a row. Shots on goal tied at 37. Of course, the Oilers, not, I don't want to say a lack of offense, but just, a lack of dangerous offense, I should say. They led the hit column 26-15, going 0 for 4 on their power plays there. Of course, it was just perimeter hockey for the most part, nothing too dangerous from the Oilers. Also getting dominated in the faceoff dot 38-29. So again, not a whole lot of positives coming out of this one last night. I always try to put a positive spin on it, but when your team gets demolished 6-1, again, not really a whole lot of silver linings in this one. I mean, despite putting, 37 shots on goal, weren't able to beat Joey Decord more than once, comparing this one to Saturday night, when it was a completely different game, in the Oilers actually, controlled play for the most part, but Seattle just took advantage of a depleted, an energy depleted Edmonton Oilers team. Just taking a look at the hockey stat card, even though I don't want to, I mean, just a whole lot of passengers on this card here. Just a rough game from, all of the defensive core. I don't even say, don't want to say nobody had an awful game, but nothing positive from any of the 6 defensemen last night. But of course, Jeff Skinner was easily the best Oiler in my opinion, alongside Zach Hyman and Corey Perry. I mean, 39 years old, trying to carry the weight without the big guns in the lineup there, but just a whole lot of those columns leaning left. And the more of those leaning left, that is very, very worrisome. But again, just looking at the D pairings broken down there. Sure, analytically, Nurse and Wallman, they did look good with a 73% Corsi for percentage, but just a lot of stupid giveaways and forced errors from Seattle towards all six defensemen last night. Just brutal in every sense of the word. I know this isn't exactly the most positive Oiler video. We'll get to some positivity in a sec, but you just the game tape, the game file, whatever they use to rewatch game tape the next day, burn it. Don't even watch it. Just throw it in the garbage and completely forget about it. That is not Oilers hockey there. But again, just on the defense side, -2 from Evan Bouchard. As much as I want to defend him, sure, even he had a rough game last night. -2 from John Klingberg, with the John Klingberg experiment still somehow going on for some reason. Brett Kulak with a -2 again. Rough game from him. Ty Emerson back in the lineup -1, and yeah, it still says Troy Stetcher as a defenseman here when he played 7 minutes as a winger. I think that's just the way it works here. But again, yeah, it's just very crazy how different this D-core can look on the second half of a back-to-back. Of course, we've seen fantastic games from all 6 and even 7 when the Oilers do run 11-7. We've seen fantastic games from them. I don't know what happened last night, which led them to just make some stupid unforced errors or forced errors. They just made errors all around the board, all across the ice here, folks. Just hopefully this is a one-off, but just yeah, quite the game. And of course, let's talk about goaltending here. Calvin Pickard, sure, it wasn't all his fault, like I said in the beginning, but sometimes you need a save here or there. But Olivier Rodrigue makes his NHL debut. Of course, he played a preseason game back here in Seattle in September. Wasn't exactly, the kindest game for him, but makes his NHL debut with an 8.75. I think he had a fantastic third period. Sure, the one goal that he let in, a little bit fluky, but he just seemed like like a goalie. He was very fluid between the pipes, had fantastic lateral movement, puck tracking a little off, but I mean, he's a rookie goaltender. You can't expect him to be like 1986 Patrick Waugh or 2019 Jordan Binnington between the pipes here, acting like the second coming of Hasek. But I'm very excited to see what the Oilers do have with Rodrigue between the pipes, because of course he's been in the development whole system for 5 years now. So you either have to see what you have with him or try something different. But of course you can't do that without trying him first. And with the Oilers, the way they treat their prospects is very worrisome. But hopefully we see Rodrigue get some runway with no Stuart Skinner, as he is still day to day. But of course, looking at the money puck stats here, Calvin Pickard with a -2.28 goals saved above expected, but Olivier Rodrigue a 0.7, which still is not a minus, and I can take that any day of the week. And Knoblauch had some very, very good words for Ollie after this game. He made a lot of big saves. He looked engaged. The rebound control was good, and his agility made for some really big saves. So it was nice to see. It would have been nice to see him have an easy period, but he was tested with some big ones. It was nice to see that he can do it, and what a way for him to get an NHL debut, down, 4 goals to the Seattle Kraken. And it was just a way for him to get some reps. It was more so a mercy pool for Calvin Pickard. But like I said, hopefully it's a one-off. And head coach Kris Knoblauch also hopes it is a one-off. It doesn't matter if we lose a one-goal game or a big one like tonight. I think the efforts over the last few games has been really good. And some of the games maybe could have went another way. But tonight we definitely didn't deserve to win. And hopefully that's just a one-off. Hopefully we can turn the page and move on. And hopefully they can do so. But stumbling towards the finish line without McDavid, Draisaitl, Ekholm, and Stuart Skinner, with the way the Edmonton Oilers are looking heading into tomorrow night, the Battle of Alberta at Rogers Place. The last time we see Calgary this season, unless some miracle happens for them to meet in the Stanley Cup playoffs somehow, some way, if Calgary does get one of those wild card spots. 9 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Mountain on Hockey Night in Canada, one of the biggest stages in hockey. But the Oilers, again, the only solace we can take from this one last night, despite the loss, and Rodrigue had a good game, but LA was shut out 4-0 by the Colorado Avalanche last night. So, Colorado helping out the Oilers, but the Oilers still in third place in the Pacific Division. At this point, they're just trying to get home ice for the first round, and they just forget about, Vegas unless they go perfect the rest of the way. But the Oilers, again, very, very worrisome in terms of their on-ice defense coming here from the Athletic, as we look towards the end of the regular season there. Calgary, Vegas, San Jose, Los Angeles, Anaheim, St. Louis, San Jose, Winnipeg, LA, and San Jose yet again. But the Oilers, again, not very good defensively. There was a stat saying, they were ranked 29th in goals against per 60 since January 10th. So that is, again, a lot to worry about when it comes to, the way they performed in the first 50 games, and then from, game 60 until 70, just abysmal from the Oilers. Of course, it's not just, defense, it's goaltending. Find a scapegoat, whatever you can. It's just, again, not the Oilers that we're used to seeing, despite, the firepower in the best defensive core we've seen in the McDavid era. But that is it for today's video. Let me know down in the comments what you thought about last night's game. If there's any thoughts that you had in general, I'm very, very interested to find out. And are you excited about Olivier Rodrigue? Do you think he should get the start tomorrow against the Calgary Flames? I think so. It's a big game. What better way for him to test who he actually is than in one of the biggest stages in hockey? Again, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, folks. Have a great rest of your Friday, and we'll be back tomorrow to preview the Battle of Alberta. Take care. I'm Matt.